is Kaitlan. What's yours? Now, if I wasn't on stage, you'd hopefully grab my hand and shake. You might smile. You might say, "Nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. How are you?" I'd be willing to bet that that is the most unanswered question we ask. You probably didn't think twice as we talked about it. Good, we usually answer. Walk into an interview, how are you doing? Good. Walk into a classroom, how are you doing? Good. Text your brother how his day was, and he says, good. Or maybe it isn't always good. Maybe it's, I'm kind of tired. Or, okay, I guess. But the point is, we slip easily between conversations, between carefully constructed, or maybe completely unconstructed versions of ourselves. I began really thinking about this almost exactly 3 years ago. It is October 22nd, 2016. I am crying in the hallway of my high school, hugging my English teacher. Actually, she's hugging me because my body is convulsing. I try to stop the flow of tears, but I can't. Why? I ask her over and over. It can't be her, I say. I don't get it. This is the day I find out my friend died. I called her my friend, but we only ever exchanged physics solutions. I called her my friend, but only ever responded, good, when she asked me how I was. Only ever expected her to say good when I asked her how she was. How are you? I could not bear to answer the question that day. I cried, I skipped class, I ran around the track, I went home. Never before had I felt so weak, so helpless, so inescapably stuck in the past. All those moments I had with my friend were no more than fleeting. All the how are yous were asked in vain, and I hadn't cared. Did I even deserve to be crying? Never before had I broken past that superficial layer. I never answered honestly, not to her, not even to myself. I hadn't been willing to be vulnerable. And because of it, I was involuntarily more lost and vulnerable now than ever. And that's what this talk is about. What does it mean to be vulnerable? Why do we need it? And how can we most effectively express it? The day the news about my friend broke, I went home, scribbled down a letter in a deluge of tears, and placed it in a box. By this time, the project had already been ongoing for a couple of months. Letters written to the future, many written to people who impacted me. Some written to people I hoped to impact, and a few written to myself. I had begun the project as a social time capsule, and in many ways, I guess it still is that. But more and more, I think of my letters to the future as personalized, shared professions of vulnerability. That shift was marked by this tear-stained letter, written to my friend who died. There is no quota for this project, but there is a process. And if you want to try it out for yourself, and I definitely would recommend it, here's how it goes. The very first step is to grab a lined sheet of paper and go. The line sheet concept is important because it's unimpressive. I don't feel a need to live up to the paper, and the words just flow. I keep writing. I can't rewrite. I can't reread. I find that one so hard. But I definitely cannot rewrite. I'm not allowed to cross out gooey sentences. I'm not allowed to stop. Because the point is, it's more than just a letter. It's supposed to be a conversation I'm having with the recipient, only stored for later. Then I seal the letter immediately. This goes with the no rereading concept in number 2, because I want to make sure that the words and thoughts are no longer mine once that envelope closes. They belong wholly to the recipient. So finally, I transform from writer to messenger. I often date the letter, like 3 years from now, or if it's not reserved for a certain date, I'll just hand it over when it feels right. Written to be read in the future, these letters all carry so much hope, so much unsurety. The acknowledgement of, I don't know, and above all, the portrayal of vulnerability. One letter to my brother reads, 3 years from now, you'll open this up. I wonder, 3 years from now, what am I? What are you? And that's the beauty of it. As I write, whether or not I realize it, I finally answer the, how are you? I avoid otherwise. This is how I'm doing, I tell my brother, or my friend, or my future self, or the person who unintentionally broke my heart. This is what's going on, I say. I write, forcing myself to avoid rereading, forbidding myself from rewriting, making sure that I don't make this about me. And that, I believe, is what effective vulnerability is. It's not just about me. It's not just about me. When we think of vulnerability, we often think of unknowing children, nakedness, defenselessness, open wounds. And in many ways, those images are right. The word vulnerable comes from the Latin word vulnus, meaning wound. But it's not all about that. When we are able to look at our injuries, doubts, fears, and say, these wounds are not just about me, we can finally make them mean more than just broken patches of skin. We let go of the consequences. For me, the application is in writing my letters to the future. I write and sign and seal and have all these funny little rules to make sure that I'm not making it about me, to make sure that I am truly vulnerable. And what results is the possibility of intense connection. Some people ask me, do you get scared when you give these letters away? And I think it would make sense to say, yeah, I do, but I don't. And it's not because I'm extraordinarily brave. I think it's simply because I meant what I wrote when I wrote it. Maybe I did depend on time and forgetfulness to gather courage, but I really wanted the recipient to know, this is how I'm doing today. I thought of you. How are you? How vulnerable do we allow ourselves to be? How much are we willing to admit that we don't know? How much do we often hide, whether or not we realize it? Perhaps for me, it took the exaggerated act of writing letters addressed to people in the future to let go of the consequences, to understand and accept my own vulnerabilities, and to see that my wounds, if I wanted them to matter, were not just about me. Now, I'm not saying that we have to profess our vulnerabilities to everyone who asks us how our day is going, but I am inviting you to consider for yourself how you approach confidence, strength, how you tend to answer when you ask yourself, if you ever ask yourself, how am I doing? Then how can you extend that acceptance of your own vulnerability to the people around you, to the people you love? Is it possible to love them without being vulnerable? I'm a poet, so I'm going to use poetry to answer. Love is not love until love's vulnerable. Most of us want our lives to be cradled by that four-letter word. We hope to be kind. We hope to be loving. We hope to be loved. But love is not love unless it's vulnerable. For so long, I thought that the death of my friend was not my story to tell. I didn't hide it, it's just that we weren't even close. I never found out exactly what happened, and I never asked. I never attended, nor was I invited to a funeral. But I still hurt in ways I didn't expect, ways I didn't want, and then I realized these wounds must be more than just my own. Maybe one of you experienced something similar. Maybe someone you know experienced something similar. I don't know. What happens when we extend just a little vulnerability? About a month ago, I did just that. I didn't mean to. Maybe that's a problem. Most of us don't mean to be vulnerable. Accidental, but it happened. I stumbled across an art sale in the middle of the street and said hi to the artist. We talked for a while, and then he shared about how he quit his job to pursue art. Financial insecurity, rejection, constantly asking, did I make the right decision? And I asked the same of myself, pursuing a degree in literature with so many friends and family and pre-med, computer science. We were these two random strangers talking. Vulnerability emerged from behind the line sheets of paper and sealed envelopes, and I bought a painting. He gifted me 2 more, and all 3 of them hang in my dorm room right now. You might expect me to end with something like, if my friend were alive today, I'd tell her, but she's not. And because she is not, she allows me to address you instead. In the same way that I hope you address others for the rest of your life. Hi, my name's Kaitlan. How are you? Thank you.